Hi, I'm Eric Mitchell, the Audrey Geisel University librarian. Welcome and thank you for joining the UC San Diego Library as we celebrate the National Education Association's 18th annual Read Across America Day. We have an exciting lineup of readers today, but first, please welcome UC San Diego Chancellor Pradeep Khosla.
Thank you, Eric. Reading plays an integral role in shaping us as individuals and inspiring us to achieve great things. UC San Diego's library supports all of us in these endeavors. This year, Read Across America Day is a perfect opportunity to mark the 50th anniversary of Geisel Library. Geisel Library continues to provide a foundation of knowledge for groundbreaking discoveries and intellectual achievements for which UC San Diego has become renowned. Geisel Library itself is a symbol for knowledge and for progress. It is a destination, not just for students and faculty, but also for our greater San Diego community. In a regular year without a pandemic, more than 7,700 patrons discover knowledge and expand their minds in our library every day. Researchers from around the world travel to this library to work with the unique papers of such eminent San Diegans as Jonas Salk, Francis Crick, and Walter Munk. This library matters to our students, to our faculty, and to our staff. And it matters to the greater intellectual community in San Diego. So thank you, UC San Diego librarians and other library staff for helping us discover, grow, and spark new ideas. We are smarter, more informed, and better individuals because of you. Happy 50th birthday, Geisel Library, and thank you for continuing to be the heart and soul of UC San Diego. Now, let's read together.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Simmons, and I'm the Executive Vice Chancellor here at UC San Diego. Today, I'm going to read you one of my very favorite books. It's called Whistle for Willie, and it was written by Ezra Jack Keats, who won the Caldecott Medal for children's literature way back in the year that I was born. So this is a book that my parents read to me when I was a little girl, and I read it to my own children. And in fact, this is the exact copy that is from my childhood. One of the things I really like about the book is the way the words and the pictures really bring you inside the mind of a child. So, Whistle for Willie. Oh, how Peter wished he could whistle. He saw a boy playing with his dog. Whenever the boy whistled, the dog ran straight to him. Peter tried and tried to whistle, but he couldn't. So instead, he began to turn himself around. Around and around he whirled, faster and faster. When he stopped, everything turned down and up and up and down and around and around. Peter saw his dog Willie coming. Quick as a wink, he hid in an empty carton lying on the sidewalk. Wouldn't it be funny if I whistled? Peter thought. Willie would stop and look all around to see who it was. Peter tried again to whistle, but still he couldn't. So Willie just walked on. Peter got out of the carton and started home. On the way, he took some colored chalks out of his pocket and drew a long, long line. Right up to his door. He stood there and tried to whistle again. He blew till his cheeks were tired, but nothing happened. He went into his house and put on his father's old hat to make himself feel more grown up. He looked into the mirror to practice whistling. Still no whistle. When his mother saw what he was doing, Peter pretended that he was his father. He said, "I've come home early today, dear. Is Peter here?" His mother answered, Why no, he's out with Willie." "Well, I'll go outside and look for them then," said Peter. First, he walked along a crack in the sidewalk. Then he tried to run away from his shadow. He jumped off his shadow, but when he landed, they were together again. He came to the corner where the carton was, and who should he see but Willie? Peter scrambled under the carton. He blew and blew and blew. Suddenly, out came a real whistle. Willie stopped and looked around to see who it was. "It's me," Peter shouted and stood up. Willie raced straight to him. Peter ran home to show his father and mother what he could do. They loved Peter's whistling. So did Willie. Peter's mother asked him and Willie to go on an errand to the grocery store. He whistled all the way there, and he whistled all the way home. The end.
Hello, my name is Rachel Almodovar. I'm here from the UC San Diego Library reading to you from one of my favorite books, Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. I'm reading with permission from Harper Perennial. It was a spring afternoon in West Florida. Janie had spent most of the day under a blossoming pear tree in the backyard. She had been spending every minute that she could steal from her chores under that tree for the last 3 days. That was to say, ever since the first tiny bloom had opened. It had called her to come and gaze on a mystery. From barren brown stems to glistening leaf buds, from the leaf buds to snowy virginity of bloom, it stirred her tremendously. How? Why? It was like a flute song forgotten in another existence and remembered again. What? How? Why? This singing she heard that had nothing to do with her ears. The rose of the world was breathing out smell. It followed her through all her waking moments and caressed her in her sleep. It connected itself with other vaguely felt matters that had struck her outside observation and buried themselves in her flesh. Now they emerged and quested about her consciousness. She was stretched on her back beneath the pear tree, smoking in the alto chant of the visiting bees, the gold of the sun and the panting breath of the breeze when the inaudible voice of it all came to her. She saw a dust-bearing bee sink into the sanctum of a bloom, the thousand-sister calyx arch to meet the love embrace and the ecstatic shiver of the tree from root to tiniest branch, creaming in every blossom and frothing with delight. So this was a marriage. She had been summoned to behold a revelation. Then Janie felt a pain remorseless sweet that left her limp and languid. After a while, she got up from where she was and went over to the little garden field entire. She was seeking confirmation of the voice and vision, and everywhere she found and acknowledged answers, a personal answer for all other creations except herself. She felt an answer seeking her, but where, when, how? She found herself at the kitchen door and stumbled inside. In the air of the room were flies tumbling and singing, marrying and giving in marriage. When she reached the narrow hallway, she was reminded that her grandmother was home with a sick headache. She was lying across the bed asleep, so Janie tipped on out of the front door. Oh, to be a pear tree, any tree in bloom, with kissing bees singing of the beginning of the world. She was 16. She had glossy leaves and bursting buds, and she wanted to struggle with life, but it seemed to elude her. Where were the singing bees for her? Nothing on the place, nor in her grandmother's house, answered her. She searched and much of the world as she could find from the top of the front steps, and then went on down to the front gate and leaned over to gaze up and down the road, looking, waiting, breathing short with impatience, waiting for the world to be made. And that's from Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. Thank you.
Hello folks, today I'm going to be reading an excerpt from this book titled Total Recall, My Unbelievable True Life Story by Arnold Schwarzenegger, with permission of Simon & Schuster. First off, I grew up a huge Arnold Schwarzenegger fan. He inspired me to lift weights and to get strong, but most importantly not to give up on my goals. What I enjoyed about this book is Arnold's life story and how he was able to achieve the American dream. He immigrated to America from Austria, not being able to speak English, but with sheer determination and hard work, he was able to overcome the language barrier and conquer the world of bodybuilding, movies, real estate, and eventually becoming governor of California. The excerpt I'm going to be reading to you folks is Arnold's first arrival in America during the Mr. Universe bodybuilding competition. Let's get started. For the first time, I laid eyes on the world bodybuilding champion, Sergio Oliva. Sergio was an immigrant to the United States from Cuba who was the first member of a minority to win Mr. America, Mr. World, Mr. International, Mr. Universe, and Mr. Olympia. He just won his second consecutive Mr. Olympia title the previous week. Even though I wasn't yet in this league, Oliva knew we'd be competing soon. He's just very, very good, he told a reporter about me. Next year will be tough, but that's okay with me, because I do not like to compete with babies. When I heard about that, I thought, already the sight games are beginning. 24 guys were in the competition, divided into two groups, tall and short. In the daytime rounds of preliminary judging, I beat the other tall men easily. But the top guy in the short men category was Mr. America, Frank Zane, and he's shown up in the best shape of his career. He just won the Mr. America competition in New York the week before. I was big, well-shaped, and powerful as I'd been in London, with the same impressive mass. But a week of twiddling my thumbs waiting for my visa had left me a little heavier than my ideal, which meant that when I posed, my body looked smooth and less sharply defined. Worse, besides being perfectly proportioned, muscular, and cut up, Zane had a serious tan, while I was as white as a soccer ball. Going into the evening finals, he was ahead of me on points. That night, in front of the crowd, I felt I looked 100% better because flexing and posing under stage lights all day had melted off the excess pounds. That helped make the competition between Frank Zane and me so close that we tied in the judges' final vote. But Frank's higher point in score from the earlier in the day made him the winner and not me. I stood by on stage, trying not to look stunned, while a guy 5 inches shorter than me and 50 pounds lighter took the prize. It was a blow. I'd finally made it to America just I had envisioned. But then I lost Mr. Universe in Miami to a lighter and shorter man. I thought the competition had been fixed because he was just not big enough to win against me. Even though I liked the definition, he was a scrawny little guy. That night, despair came crashing in. My cheerfulness almost never deserted me, but it did then. I was in a foreign country, away from my family, away from my friends, surrounded by strange people in a place where I didn't speak the language. How did I even make it this far? I was way out of my depth. All my belongings were in one little gym bag. I'd left behind everything else. My job was probably gone. I had no money. I didn't know how I'd get home. Worst of all, I'd lost. The great Joe Weider had brought me across the Atlantic to give me this opportunity, but instead of rising to the occasion, I embarrassed myself and failed to perform. I was sharing a room with Roy Collender, a young black bodybuilder based in England who had also been in the London competition. He was very sweet, talking to me about my loss. He was much more mature than I was, and was talking about things that I could not even understand. He was talking about feelings. Yeah, it's hard to lose after such a big victory in London, he said, but remember, next year you will win again, and everyone will forget about this loss. This was the first time that a man had ever been that nurturing with me. I knew that women were nurturing, my mother was nurturing, other women were nurturing, but to get a real empathy from a guy was overwhelming. Up until then, I thought that only girls cried, but I ended up crying quietly in the dark for hours. It was a great relief. The next day at the gym, I thought more about my loss to Frank Zane. Now that I stopped feeling sorry for myself, I came to harsher conclusions than those I'd reached the night before. I still felt the judging had been unfair, but I discovered this wasn't the real cause of my pain. It was the fact that I failed. Not my body, but my vision and my drive. Losing to Chet Yorton in London in 1966 hadn't felt bad because I'd done everything I could to prepare. It was just not my year. But something different had happened here. I was not as ripped as I could have been. I could have dieted a week before and not eaten so much fish and chips. I could have found a way to train more even without access to equipment. For instance, I could have done 1,000 reps of abs or something that could have made me feel ready. I could have worked on my posing. Nothing had stopped me from doing that. Never mind about the judging. I hadn't done everything in my power to prepare. Instead, I thought my momentum from winning in London would carry me. I told myself I just won Mr. Universe and I could let myself go. That was nonsense. Thinking this made me furious. Even though you won the professional Mr. Universe contest in London, you're still an amateur, I told myself. What happened here never should have happened. It only happens to an amateur. You're an amateur, Arnold. Staying in America, I decided, had to mean that I wouldn't be an amateur ever again. Now the real game would begin. There was a lot of work ahead, and I had to start as a professional. I didn't ever want to go away from bodybuilding competition like I had in Miami. If I was going to beat guys like Sergio Oliva, that could never happen again. From now on, if I lost, I was able to walk away with a big smile because I had done everything I could to prepare. Thank you very much, folks. This concludes our reading for Total Recall, My Unbelievable Life Story by Arnold Schwarzenegger. Thank you very much. Hope you all enjoyed.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sarita, and today we'll be reading Oh, the Places You'll Go, written and illustrated by Dr. Seuss, with special thanks to Random House for letting us read this today. This book is really close to my heart because in our resource center here at UCSD, as a student, I just pick it up and read it for inspiration whenever I felt down. And I want to remind you that you will go places and keep that hope alive as I read this book to you today. So let's get started. You have brains in your head. You have feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself any direction you choose. You're on your own, and you'll know what you know. And you are the guy who'll decide where to go. You'll look up and down streets, look them over with care. About some you'll say, I don't choose to go there. With your head full of brains and feet and shoes full of feet, you're too smart to go down any not so good street. You may not find any you want to go down. In that case, you'll head straight out of town. It's opener there in the wide open air. Out there, things can happen, and they frequently do, to people as brainy and footsy as you. And when things start to happen, don't worry, don't stew, just go right along. You'll start happening too. Oh, the places you'll go. You'll be on your way up, seeing great sights. You'll join the high flyers who soar to high heights. How amazing, right? You won't lag behind because you'll have the speed. You'll pass the whole gang and you'll soon take the lead. Wherever you fly, you'll be the best of the best. Wherever you go, you will top all the rest. Except when you don't, because sometimes you won't. I'm sorry to say, but sadly it's true, that bang-ups and hang-ups can happen to you. You can get all hung up in a prickly perch, and your gang will fly on, and you'll be left in a lurch. You'll come down from the lurch with an unpleasant bump, and the chances are then you'll be in a slump. And when you're in a slump, you're not in for much fun. Unschlumping yourself is not easily done. You'll come to a place where streets are not marked. Some windows are lighted, but mostly they're dark. A place you could sprain both your elbow and your chin. Do you dare to stay out? Do you dare to go in? How much can you lose? How much can you win? And if you go in, should you turn left or right in 3/4, or maybe not quite, or go around back and sneak in from behind? Simple, it's not, I'm afraid you'll find, for a mind maker upper to make up his mind. Wow. You can get so confused that you'll start in to race down long wiggled roads at breaknecking pace and grind on for miles towards weirdish wild space, headed, I fear, toward a most useless place, the waiting place. Ooh. For people just waiting. Waiting for a train to go, or a bus to come, or a train to go, or mail to come, or the rain to go, or the phone to ring, or the snow to snow, or waiting for a yes or a no, or waiting for their hair to grow. Everyone is just waiting. Waiting for a fish to bite, waiting for wind to fly a kite, waiting around for Friday night, or waiting perhaps for their Uncle Jack, or a pot to boil, or a better break, or a string of pearls, or another pair of pants, or a wig with curls, or another chance. Everyone is just waiting. No, that's not for you. Somehow you'll escape all that waiting and staying. You'll find the right places where the booth bands are playing. With banners flip-flapping once more, you'll ride high, ready for anything under the sky. Ready because you're that kind of guy. Wow, look at that. Oh, the places you'll go. There is fun to be done, there are points to be scored, there are games to be won. and the magical things you can do with that ball. You will make you the winningest winner of all. Fame. You'll be famous as can be, with the whole wide world watching you win on TV. Like, amazing, right? Except when you don't, because sometimes they won't. I'm afraid that sometimes you'll play lonely games too. Games you can't win because you'll play against you. All alone, whether you like it or not. Alone will be something. You'll be quite a lot. And when you're alone, there's a very good chance you'll meet things that scare you right out of your pants. And there's some down the road between hither and yon that can scare you so much you won't want to go on. So terrifying. But on you will go. Through the weather be foul, on you will go, though your enemies prowl. On you will go, through the hanging crawls howl. Onward, up many a frightening creek, though your arms may get sore, and your sneakers may leak. On and on you will hike, and I know that you'll hike far, and face to your problems, no matter what they are. So big. You'll get mixed up, of course, as you already know. You'll get mixed up with many strange birds as you go. So be sure when you step with great care and great tact, and remember that life's a great balancing act. Just never forget to be dexterous and deft, and never mix up your right foot with your left foot. Oh my. And will you succeed? Yes, you will indeed. 98.25% guaranteed. Kid, you'll move mountains. So be your name Buxbaum or Bixby or Bray or Mordecai Alvan de Diochet. You're off to the great places. Today is your day. Your mountain is waiting. So get on your way. And for every guy, for every gal that's here, thank you so much for joining me on Oh, the Places You'll Go. And remember, bright and wonderful places are waiting for you.
Hi, my name is Jin Moon, and I'm the Korean and Japanese Studies librarian at UC San Diego. Today, I'm going to read a book called The Name Jar. I hope you enjoy the book. The Name Jar by Yang-Suk Choi. Through the school bus window, Eun-hye looked out at the strange buildings and houses on her way to her new school. It was her first day, and she was both nervous and excited. She fingered the little block of wood in her pocket and remembered leaving her grandmother at the airport in Korea. Her grandmother had wiped away Eun-hye's tears and handed her an ink pad and a small red satin pouch. "Your name is inside," she had said. "My name?" Eun-hye had wondered. Again, she took out the red pouch to look at the wooden block with her name carved in it. As she ran her fingers along the grooves and ridges of the Korean character, she pictured her grandmother's smile. "Is that thing for show and tell?" a boy asked Eun-hye, surprising her. Eun-hye looked up as more kids leaned over. "No, it's mine," Eun-hye answered, quickly putting the pouch back into her pocket. "Are you new here? What's your name?" a girl asked. "Eun-hye," said Eun-hye. "One?" the girl asked, scrunching up her face. "Oh, One," some kids chanted. No, Eun-hye corrected. It's spelled U-N-H-E-I. It's pronounced Eun-hye. "Oh, it's you-hey," the boy said. "Like you-hey. What about hey you?" Just then, The bus pulled up to the school and the doors opened. Une hurried to get off. Yuhei, bye-bye, the kids yelled as she left. Une felt herself blush. Une stood in the doorway of her new and noisy classroom. She was relieved that the kids on the bus had gone to other rooms, but her face still felt red. Aren't you going in? Asked a curly-haired boy with lots of dots on his face. You're the new girl, right? He asked cheerfully. Une nodded, and before she could walk away, the boy took her hand and pulled her through the door. Here's the new girl, he announced so loudly that the teacher, Mr. Kokotos, almost dropped his glasses. Mr. Kokotos thanked him and greeted Une. Please welcome our newest student, he said to the class. She and her family just arrived from Korea last week. Une smiled broadly and tried not to show her nervousness. What's your name? Someone shouted. Une pictured the kids on the bus. I haven't picked one yet, she told the class, but I'll let you know by next week. As Mr. Kokoto showed her to her desk, she felt many round, curious eyes on her. Why doesn't she have a name? She heard someone whisper. Maybe she robbed a bank in Korea and needs a new identity, a boy replied. On the bus home, nobody teased her, but Une kept thinking about her name. How was school, Une? Her mother asked when she walked in. Did you understand the teacher? Une simply nodded. She unpacked her school bag and set the red pouch by a photograph of her grandma. I'm glad you're learning English well, her mother said. You must study hard, behave nicely, and get good grades to show that you're a good Korean. I will, replied Une. But I think I would like my own American name, she said quickly. Her mother looked at her with surprise. Why? Une is a beautiful name. Your grandma and I went to a name master for it. But it's so hard to pronounce, Une complained. I don't want to be different from all the American kids. You are different, Une, her mother said. That's a good thing. Une just wrinkled her nose. Later that day, Une and her mother went grocery shopping in their new neighborhood. They passed Fidel's Falafel, Tony's Pizza, and Dot's Deli. A big graffiti-painted garbage truck roared like a lion as it took off down the street. Nothing sounded or looked familiar until they got to Kim's Market. The sign was in both English and Korean. Her mother picked up cabbage to make kimchi, Korean-style spicy pickled cabbage, and other vegetables and meat. She also found some seaweed, Une's favorite, for soup. It made Une smile. Just because we moved to America, her mother said, doesn't mean we stop eating Korean food. At the checkout counter, a friendly man smiled at Une. Helping your mother with shopping? He asked. Une nodded. I'm Mr. Kim, he said. And what's your name? Une, she answered. Ah, what a beautiful name, he said. Doesn't it mean grace? Une nodded again. My mother and grandmother went to a name master for it, she told him. A graceful name for a graceful girl, Mr. Kim said as he put their groceries into bags. Welcome to the neighborhood, Une. That evening, Une stood in front of the bathroom mirror. Hi, my name is Amanda, she said cheerfully. Then she wrinkled her nose. Hi, my name is Laura. Maybe not. Her smile turned down. Nothing sounded right. Nothing felt right. I don't think American kids will like me, she worried as she began to brush her teeth. Hi, my name is Suji, she said to the mirror with her mouth full of toothpaste. The next morning when Une arrived at school, she found a glass jar on her desk with some pieces of paper in it. Une took out one and read it out loud. Daisy. That's my baby sister's nickname, but she said you can use it if you want, said Cindy, who sat next to her. Une took out the rest of the paper. Tamila, she read. I got it from a storybook, said Nate. She was smart and brave. Une nodded and unfolded another piece. Wednesday? Yeah. You came here on Wednesday, said Ralph. Thank you for your help. A smile spread over Eunhe's face. Ralph quickly said, "We'll put more names in it. You can pick whatever you like. Or pick them all, and you'll have the longest name in history." At 3 o'clock, the bell rang for the end of the school day. Eunhe looked out the window and saw it was sprinkling. It's the same rain, she thought, but in a different place. She watched other kids leaving in groups. "Hey!" a familiar voice called out to her. Eunhe turned around to see the curly-haired boy again. "I'm Joey," he said. "And you? Don't you have any name?" Eunhe thought for a moment. "Well, I can show you," she said, and took out the small red pouch. She pressed a wooden block on the ink pad and then stamped it on a piece of paper. "This is my name stamp," she said. "My grandma gave it to me. In Korea, I can use it as a signature when I open a bank account or write a letter. And whenever I miss my grandma, I use it to fill a piece of paper. Want to try it?" She offered the stamp to Joey, and he carefully inked the stamp and pressed it hard on the paper. The red character gleamed against the whiteness. "Wow, that's beautiful," Joey said. "Can I keep the paper?" "Sure," Eunhe said. And then the two of them shared her umbrella as they walked to the school bus. Every day, the jar got fuller with more names, and Eunhe read them all. She found a few names she liked: Miranda, Stella, Avery. They sounded interesting. "I hope you choose the name I put in," Marco told her at snack time. "I put in 3 more," said Ralph. "Madison, Park, and Lex. They're my favorite street names." "Maybe you should close your eye and draw a name," Rosie suggested. Ralph frowned. "That's silly. What if she doesn't like the name she draws?" "Well, we didn't get to choose our names when we were born, did we?" Rosie argued. Everyone thought about this. When Eunhe got home from school that day, her little brother ran to give her a letter. It was from her grandma. She opened it quickly. It said, "To my Eunhe, I hope you are enjoying your new school and new friends. Be sure to help your mother and your little brother. Here, the moon is up, but there, the sun is up. No matter how far apart we are, and no matter how different America is from Korea, you'll always be my Eunhe, your grandma forever." Eunhe took out her wooden stamp and filled the paper with it. She thought for a long period of time in front of the bathroom mirror. On Saturday, Eunhe walked to Mr. Kim's store. Mr. Kim was helping a customer, but he looked up and greeted her. "Hi, Eunhe." "Hello, Mr. Kim," Eunhe replied. She felt as if she was back in her old neighborhood in Korea. "Hey," said the customer, turning around. It was Joey. "Your name is Eunhe?" he said. On Saturday, Eunhe walked to Mr. Kim's store. Mr. Kim was helping a customer, but he looked up and greeted her. "Hi, Eunhe." "Hello, Mr. Kim," Eunhe replied. She felt as if she was back in her old neighborhood in Korea. "Hey," said the customer, turning around. It was Joey. "Your name is Eunhe?" he asked her with his eyes open wide. Eunhe looked quickly at Mr. Kim, then turned to Joey. She nodded slowly. "Yes, it's pronounced Eunhe. And it means grace," Mr. Kim added. "Eunhe," Joey said slowly, and this time perfectly. It made Eunhe smile. "I'll have it ready for you tomorrow, Mr. Kim," to Joey. "Thank you, Mr. Kim. See you Monday, Eunhe," Joey said to her. He left before she asked him why he was at the store. On Monday, Eunhe came to class early to look at the names one last time. But the jar wasn't on her desk. Instead, there was a single piece of paper with a name on it. Eunhe slipped it into her pocket. "Where's your name jar?" Ralph asked as soon as he saw it was gone. "I don't know," Eunhe said. "It wasn't on Mr. Kokoto's desk or on any other desk. And it wasn't on the counters or any of the shelves." As other kids arrived, they helped look. Soon, Mr. Kokoto's came in and Ralph shouted at him, "Their name jar is gone! The jar with all the names in it!" "Gone?" Mr. Kokoto's replied. With the look of concern, he asked Eunhe, "Did you get a chance to read all the names?" Eunhe nodded. She took a breath. I'm ready to introduce myself, she said. Eunhae wrote her name in both English and Korean on the chalkboard. I like the beautiful names and funny names you thought for me, she told the class, but I realized that I liked my name best, so I choose it again. Korean name means something. Eunhae means grace. Grace, grace, Eunhae, shouted Ralph. Everyone tried to say it. Eunhae, Eunhae, Eunhae. Eunhae said her name again, slowly and clearly. Soon the kids began to say it better, even Mr. Kokotos. They applauded Eunhae's choice. I was named after a flower, Rosie whispered to Eunhae. Lots of American names have meanings too, Mr. Kokotos reminded everyone. When the class was dismissed, Eunhae heard her new friend say goodbye. Goodbye, Eunhae. See you tomorrow. Goodbye, Eunhae. Eunhae said goodbye, then looked around for Joey, but he was already gone. Eunhae, Eunhae, come downstairs, Mother called up to Eunhae. Your friend is here. Eunhae rushed down to see who she meant. There stood Joey, and in his arm was the name jar. Where did you find it? Asked Eunhae breathlessly. Joey looked embarrassed. Well, I took it, but only because I wanted you to keep your own name, and you did. He reached in and pulled out the names. Do you want to keep them? He asked. Thank you. I'll keep them as a souvenir, Eunhae said happily. Then she pulled out a piece of paper from her pocket. Do you want this back? Joey grinned. You can keep it. I'll return the name jar to the class. Maybe you could put some Korean nicknames in it for us. Names with good meanings. I could do that, agreed Eunhae. I've already got a Korean nickname, Joey said. Mr. Kim helped me choose it. Carefully, he pulled a small silver felt pouch from his pocket. Then he took out a dark wooden stamp with the beautiful Korean character carved sharply into it. He pressed it on the ink pad and then on the piece of paper next to her name. 친구, read Eunhae. It means friend, and 친구 smiled back. I picked this book because it really resonated with my experience of moving to the States. My Korean name was very hard to pronounce for many of my teachers and friends, so I ended up changing to an English name. But when I went back to college, I ended up going back to my Korean name because that's where my roots are. And as Eunhae goes through her stories and how she finds out her name means grace and how she really likes her name, I realized that, my Korean name was also given to me by my parents, and they put a lot of effort into coming up with their name. And, I really love the meaning behind my name. So I ended up keeping it. And, how Eunhae was carrying the little pouch with her stamp with her name on it, I actually have something very similar that my parents gave me. So it really resonated with my experience, and I wanted to share this with you. So I really hope you enjoy the book. Thank you.
What a great book to conclude today's event. Many thanks to all of our readers. I hope you enjoyed this program, and please join us soon for another UC San Diego Library event.